Hey, welcome back to the Man-Ology Project podcast, where I'm your host, Quentin. And guess what, guys? It is October and it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I know I sound excited, and it's because we have some great information that we want to provide to you about how to handle domestic violence. I have brought on an awesome couple, some friends of mine, Tiffany and AJ Mensah, out of Phoenix, Arizona, and they're going to enlighten us on a great foundation and organization that they have designed and created to help others, called DOVES Network. And um, and they have some great programs and opportunities for healing and transformation through their programs. And so I'm gonna get out the way and let them introduce themselves, and then we're gonna jump into some excellent conversation. How you guys doing?
Good,
Doing
good.
good, good.
That's good. Go ahead. Just tell people a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Dove Network, and then we'll jump right on in.
Go ahead, baby.
Okay. All right. I'm Tiffany Mensah. This is my handsome husband, AJ Mensah. And we are over Doves Network. Doves is an acronym which stands for Daily Overcoming Violence and Embracing Safety. So we're headquartered here in Arizona. However, we have chapters in Detroit, Georgia, North Carolina, and also Texas as well. So we've been in existence since the pandemic, and Doves was developed based upon really lived experience. Unfortunately, I grew up in a home with domestic violence, and I self-published my memoir to bring awareness to it. It's actually, there's a name called Childhood Domestic Violence,
Mhm.
and there's less than 15% awareness that that is the actual name of it. No, we know domestic violence can come in many shapes and forms of fashion outside of it just being physical, from emotional to sexual to spiritual to digital, um, to also mental. Like, there's various forms of gender-based violence, but with childhood domestic violence, it specifically talks about the impact of when a child is exposed and or experiencing also the abuse that the parent goes through. And so 15% awareness as I was writing my book, and realized, wait a minute, it wasn't just me.
Mhm.
And it's estimated that over 1 billion children across the world are going through it, 15 million plus in the United States alone, and
Wow.
40 million adults grew up in these homes. So
Yes.
we unfortunately estimate those numbers to be higher because of the pandemic, and it's hard to even calculate that because survivors weren't able to really get the services needed because they were in isolation with the offender. So there's so many cases that were not reported, but a lot of the advocates in the field know that it was definitely accounts of it, and those that are coming on the back end to report it after the fact. So the book was the inspiration of, like, not just wanting to, as I did the research, not just wanting to bring awareness, but action to
Mhm.
it. And Dove's Network was birthed from that. And our husband, from me growing up in it, he didn't grow up in it, but he also had his experience to it. And I'll let him share his background on it.
So for me, and what was, I want to say, what was profound in working with Tiffany in this whole aspect for me was I didn't know that I was a victim of any of this. To me, I thought this was normal until I started hearing the conversations around it, and I was like, wait, and that sounds like my story, but how I was, so I started listening in, and with Tiffany, like she said, I wasn't a direct victim of it, but
Mhm.
most definitely, excuse me, collateral damage. And the problem was my mom was abused by my father, and they got a divorce. And what happened was she left the marriage, but she brought along the baggage.
Yeah.
And in her mind, it was like, I'm not going to let any male run my life again, no control over me. And that was great. And when I got to a certain age, though, her mentality started to change because the way that she programmed herself was that pretty soon he's going to be bigger and stronger than I am. and he's going to start trying to dominate and take control of this household. Now, in my mind, I had none of that across my mind. I feared my mom. I was, you know what I'm saying? But the baggage, and again, the trauma that she experienced, it brought along that particular thing, and that's what she saw in her mind. And I was treated in certain ways that were like most definitely abusive and controlling, both physically and mentally. And I'm just glad to be here as a survivor, because it did affect me in a lot of ways. It made me stay away from home and adopt the streets, and to not be involved in that type of atmosphere at home. It wasn't that it wasn't loving, but you just never knew when she was going to be triggered about something. But I'm glad to be here with Tiff and being able to help others to identify the aspect of it and work with the males. It's on some aspects, it's the exact same thing that Tiff is doing. If they have been abused, and a lot of guys, because of stigma, they don't want to tell you that. They have to really feel safe to let you know that, yes, I am being abused by my wife or girlfriend or something like that. And then on the other hand, it's most definitely about building that next level male, trying to jump in and kind of stop that procession of that same old erroneous information that's been handed down from generation to males to make us kind of think in that way. So it's just a lot of things that we're doing to make a difference and be that change we want to see.
Yeah. Okay. So before we jump into the topic, all the other good stuff. Okay. So when you, and we've talked about this before, but I think we should talk about it again. But so both of you guys because both of you guys are experiencing this trauma on two different levels. And then, then joining in marriage. So we got man, leadership, authority, woman, submissive, helper, not a doormat, but a strong help. And we can see that you guys have developed this team because you guys are now helping other people who think they're victims, don't know they're victims, or whatever the case may be. But you guys are actually out here making, a change in the world. So now just give us a small snapshot on how did you guys take your own separate baggage, diminish it, right? And then be able to get on the same page.
Counseling.
Legit counseling.
Like immediately, like counseling. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and again, that's not the whole thing, but again, it was a counseling preventative.
Yeah.
We didn't want to wait until a problem ensued to seek counseling. We sought counseling so problems wouldn't come and we'd have the correct tools to deal with that. But go ahead, Beck.
Yeah, and I would also say before we even came together, though, individually, the work was done. So a lot of times when you see marriages even in flux, it's like the first result is go to marriage counseling. Yes, but no, because if there's individual things that need to be worked out first, like God created us as individuals first, and he can't fix what the triggers are within me. I need to understand what that root is and what that cause is to be able to then come together as one. But I did a lot of single work. The work is all ongoing. You go from glory to glory, you go from healing to healing. So I did a lot of work in my single days before AJ to know here's the tools. He did a lot of work in his single before me to know, okay, like our dating talked about a lot of the hard questions. We talked about when conflict comes, neither one of us want to argue. Argue is a trigger. We know we're going to have hard conversations. What does that look like? Getting back to the end goal of like what healthy looks like. And then when, again, new triggers arose that had no idea was a trigger because I wasn't married. Now that I'm married, there's a trigger. So yes, activate counseling then, because now it's able to talk about, all right, here's the tools. I tried that. I need new tools. We need new tools together, but also a healthy marriage tribe healthy marriage community that's also not going to tell us stuff we want to hear, but it can give an objective view and also give like, hey, it's not just you. Here's some nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to hear it again, because I really love when people get mature and get an understanding that self-healing is a real thing, and that self-healing will only take you to 70%, 75%, right? Because a marriage will then basically complete the rest of the trash that you have in you, because nothing burns crappy foolishness and garbage and trash like fire. And I'm gonna tell you what, a covenant in a marriage is nothing but one big heaping blaze of fire. I mean, we're talking about the hottest blaze of fire that you can get. But I'm gonna tell you what you got there?
Resource, instant resource, instant resource.
I got that. Yeah. Yeah. I taught a class out of that book. Yes.
Instant.
Yes.
One of our first.
Yes.
Yeah. For those that don't know, the title of the book is Sacred Marriage.
Yes. And she's right. That book has got so many nuggets. But that's just that maturity, right? And so as we dive into our lives, and like I like the work that you guys do, dialing all the way back to teens. I'm in a space where I deal with men, maybe 18 and above, right? And so I can see the reflective of the reflection in them of all the issues that happened before 18. So when I'm talking to them about today, that's one conversation. But you guys have actually put together some metrics and measurements to help dial back into the younger, into the most hurtful years of most of our life, right? Because I'm part of that 40 million. It's like, you see it, but that stuff happened when I was anywhere between 2 and 12. And so you get a chance to see that. So let's just jump into it. So you guys, Dove Networks has a pathway program. I know there's like 3 steps there. So there's prevention, empowerment, and intervention. So just kind of walk us through that. Take your time, give it to us, break it down, because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so what we want to do here is we want to educate people. So please educate us and just kind of give us and then also, how did you guys come up with this type of a pathway?
Yeah. So, I mean, it really starts back to like the lived experience and walking through my book of my most traumatic years was a teen, and I felt forgotten. That's why I named my book Forgotten. That's what it was. Now, there's a spoiler alert at the end. I really wasn't forgotten, but during that time, a lot of the agencies focused a lot on the parent survivor and not the teen. The folks that would take my mommy and focused on the parent, not the teen. And we are in this, like, I want to help the adults. Adults is secondary to my life mission, but the teens are at such a critical area of out of their parents' house into the world, out of their parents' house into college. That's that pathway of, like I said before, you life or death, choose life so that you might live. And there's so much where when you come up in a home that it's normalized. Like I've talked to teens that's 14 years old. Like, all I've seen is my parents fighting. That's not normal. Like, all I see is that. Like, love. There's a love without fighting or cussing everybody out. Like, what's that about? And it's so normalized that at this age, if you don't put those seeds in, they then go into adulthood and you continue. So when I started Doves Network, my mom had done a lot. She divorced my dad and got out safely, thankfully. She dedicated her life to advocacy and domestic violence awareness. So many years, so many decades. But for me, it was like, I felt that pull of something different. And I felt like God say the teen. And my mom planted that seed years ago when I'm like, But no, it's timely because I kept seeing the
Right.
news articles of domestic violence, murder, domestic violence encounter. The kids are there. How are those kids healing? And when you
Right.
think about the exposure that they're seeing, and then they come into classrooms and you expect them to learn. How do I learn when I just watch my parent be abused? How do
Right.
I learn when we're fleeing from one home to another home? How do
Yeah.
I learn and I'm reconciling if even if they're being abused. In some
Yeah.
cases, it's a lot more common now than even in the 90s, unfortunately.
Right.
And then there's the element of quick fixes that I'm seeing. I have a lot of educate friends that's in the education system where they drop a diagnosis on them or get a job is the solution or they're just
Yeah.
busy. You
Mislabel the situation.
Yeah.
mislabel the situation, but also look at the behavioral. We want to treat the behaviors, but we don't want to get to the root system. So
Yeah.
with developing these pathways, one, it starts with a lot of prevention work because prevention, we came up in a time where don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. That's how I was raised. Don't talk
Thanks.
about it. What happens here stays here,
Yep.
right? And because we didn't talk about it, it was this taboo that was normalized or like, oh, look how you turned out. Do you really want to look at how we turned out when you think about it in hindsight? You know what I'm
They're gonna
saying?
grow
Like,
out of it. They kids, they're gonna grow
Right.
out of it.
yeah, like it
They're
made me
resilient.
stronger. And the traumas that were passed down again through the generations, through the grandparents, through their grandparents before that, it's just
Yep.
this is what is normalized until
Yep.
it's not, until someone says no. So prevention is all about igniting that change through the knowledge transfer. This is what it looks like, but one of the things I'm passionate about is not just the awareness of the information, it is the application part of it.
Yeah.
One of my he's our big brother, and I also say like our forever pastor, Pastor Chris Brooks. He would start a message, he would end his messages at his church and say, "How now shall I live?" And that's been embedded into everything I do. Of like, it's not just about the application. So
Right.
we do workshops that train about domestic violence 101, childhood domestic violence, even safe spaces. My father was a preacher and was allowed and enabled to abuse and weaponize our family through the word of God. And 44% of survivors are in churches that I just had a meeting this afternoon. She was raised in the faith and was told, "You're being a bad wife, go back. It's your fault. You need to
Yeah.
change." And there is a responsibility that even churches have to the soul care of your congregants. Like
Yeah.
Jesus came as the voice for those who are being abused, those who are
Right.
being oppressed. Like he came to shine the light. So we can't, it's a wrong gospel theology if we think that as churches we're not supposed to speak out against or to be safe havens. No one's trying to turn your church into a shelter, but you do have a responsibility to
Right.
partner with those that are in your community should someone come to you and advise. And I talk to even with marriage retreats. Again, I am not an advocate of going straight to marriage counseling because if there's a survivor that's being abused, and even if they're in it, I still call them a survivor, whether you're out or in, because you're surviving that moment, you're surviving that day. If you're in marriage counseling and the offender has so much fear in you, do you think you're going to get an honest account of what's happening in that house? No, it puts them more at harm's way. So there
Yeah.
has to be safe frameworks of training that needs to be done, safe responses. And like I can train you whether you're in corporate America, and I can train you according to the word. Like a part of me taking seminary classes was so that I could understand the word of God and its correct theology for myself, to study
Yeah.
myself approved, because I'm coming into the churches to shine that light so that no, you are responsible for this. And this is how you're able to advise accordingly to the word of God. So
Yeah.
that's prevention, because awareness, it starts and tugging away at those roots of like, okay, here's the tools. Here's how we break the cycle. Here's what I can now do. Here's how I can respond. That's why prevention is so, when the scripture says my people perish for lack of knowledge, that's around
Yeah.
so many different avenues. And we no longer can be unaware, because it impacts our churches, it impacts our communities, it impacts our schools, and we have to have a responsibility. So that's the prevention pathway.
Listen, that's good. That was real good though.
That's the prevention pathway. And so with empowerment pathway, that really is about, when it comes to DOVES, that acronym, daily overcoming violence and embracing safety, because it is a everyday attempt to not go back. You want to get the survivor into a place of independence where they don't have to go back. Every domestic violence occurrence, there's 99% chance that financial abuse is also encountered with it. So there's some dependency level there. You don't know if credit has been tarnished as well. Like when everyone's like, why don't you leave? Well, first off, leaving is the most dangerous time in a domestic violence relationship, whether it's physical, emotional. Leaving, if you look at the news reports, so many unfortunate deaths has occurred because the survivor left, the survivor is filing for divorce. There was something that just happened last week in Georgia outside the courthouse. The survivor asked for a police escort because of she was divorcing, and they didn't, and he shot and killed her right outside the courthouse. So leaving is not just black and white like that. So empowerment is, from a short-term fix, is established to, if you need help from a legal advocacy, if you need help from financial literacy, if you need help with resources like covering different bills, we are a bridge to those resources in the community to say, hey, we don't have that, but let us reach out and connect you to who does. It's about equipping them with those resources and skills so that they can reclaim their lives and that they don't have to go back. We try to remove as many barriers as we can, while also allowing them to rewrite new memories. So we have a component called Peaceful Families, where those that's in the program, we will design new memories for them. So we would have this time where, okay, we're going to have like a family obstacle course, right? Where they can build new memories. One of the things that I remember when being on the run with my mom, she and I did not connect. I was a teenager. I was pissed. I wasn't at the crib. I didn't have my own stuff. I'm with these people I don't know.
Right.
And I get you surviving. What about me? What about me? Right. So we try to bring in normalcy moments that take away the financial strain so that they can remember during this time there were happy moments. We can look forward to this in the midst of going to court, in the midst of dealing with the selling of the house. Like, we have this time carved out. And we have those strategic outreaches too that help lift burdens. So that's a lot of the empowerment, because a lot of people are like, yeah, that's cool information, but how are you helping me practically? That's what the empowerment pathway is. And then from intervention, that is going right in there where we're offering that safe space for the survivors, those teens to heal and grow, to be able to learn those emotional regulation, to get those coping skills. I dealt with so much internal turmoil that couldn't talk to anybody about it. Again, don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. So I'm just in my head dealing with it. And from that births these personas. It builds up these fortresses around me to not let anyone in. And I'm now processing what I see as normal, where we're able to have those conversations. We know when the parent intakes the teen, you've experienced this, and we try to, it's trauma informed. We're not therapy. It's trauma informed and strengths based. And a lot of this has been designed. I hate to say like my experience, but it was my experience. And it's the power of one that trauma informed certification talks about. You can just have one person who listens to you to help buffer that negative experience. Is life changing. And for me, that was my mentor, Greg Harton. Like, and I say him because he saw the behaviors, he ignored the behaviors, and he focused on my strengths while planting little seeds of like, that's not normal. Hey, you don't want to do like, and that fueled me into the Tiff you see today. Like, again, a lot of times they'll put you in front. My mom put me in front of a counselor. I'm not talking. I don't know that. No.
Right.
A lot of times the parent will go before the church. I had, you know how many women I had try to pray over me and try to pray demons out of me? They thought my behaviors was demon based. I'm relocated out of my will into people's houses I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a kid, my brain is still forming. And I haven't even, you know what I'm saying? And I'm being told I got a demon inside. Like, that's just no. So, but Greg was a peer. It was a peer. He met me where I was at, and we developed a relationship which built trust. You will not get a healing from teens until they feel safe.
Yeah,
Science.
I agree. Yeah,
science. They got to feel safe.
They have to feel safe.
In that safety develops trust, and in trust, now I'm open to try the things that you're doing, and that's what intervention allows us to do, is have those peer groups where what's on your mind, and it's designed, it's trauma informed and evidence based curriculum that we used. But the teens that were in the program, that when we started this, they were like, nah, that feels too much like school. They're very vocal, and we want that. Like, oh, well, we don't want it to feel like school. What do you want to do? Like, we take different topics and allow them. So that's that empowerment of voice, right? And they know how they want to heal. They know how they want to feel. And a lot of times people dislook teen experiences and teen feelings. Like, oh, you ain't no deal, or you ain't what? Like,
brush that right on off.
And mental health with teens are so much right now. So that's where that comes in. And then even the counter abuse for AJ side, and I'll let him share because I know I'm going all the way. But it's like, what we now do, I don't want my nonprofit to look like anything else because it's God inspired. Like, the whole thing is God inspired and designed. And when it comes to talking about ending the fight with domestic violence and sexual abuse too, we need the male voice. We need the men. And if they've come from a home where they've seen this as normalized, your bullying begins and all of that. So it's, how do we interject that? And that's the counter abuse component.
Yeah. Okay. Before I get to AJ, so I gotta do. You gave us a lot. But the thing is this. Listen, I think that those three components of the pathway, that prevention, empowerment, and intervention, you should have been born years ago to launch this years ago, because I think that those three pieces, not even just from a teen standpoint, I think that mothers or fathers or men or whatever, they need to understand those three components when anyone is healing through any type of trauma, abuse, sexual, mental, and then people talk about church hurt and stuff like that, and people want to debunk church hurt and all this kind of stuff. But the thing is this: hurt is hurt, right? And then what we have learned over our years is that hurt people do hurt people who continue to hurt, and that is a vicious cycle. And so I like that you guys have put together not only just hey, come in and just let me just talk to you about being empowered, but actually putting together platforms where they can actually feel empowered. And I'm telling you, making new memories, that's like paramount, because most of the time I think, and coming out of that myself, out of a home that had domestic violence, is like those memories are foggy because the trauma is loud in your mind space. And so I think that's just paramount, that you guys try to help those kids develop some new memories. And the best thing too is just taking out that financial burden, because that's probably after all the trauma happens, that financial piece jumps. It's the next thing that hit the whole
in the forefront.
Listen, it put the icing on the cake, is that now we don't even have enough, right? So now, like you said, you're living in the basement of people's houses, you're shelters, you're moving around, you got food stamps, you don't have this, and so it just really puts a crushing on whatever parent that's having to deal with that abuse. And then if you add those kids to it, it is. So I do thank you guys for that. For being able to be a place for that. I think you're right. Your organization is different. I think because you do tackle both spaces, the natural, and then still trying to form people to understand that ultimately Christ is the way. He's the one that's going to be able to cleanse and clean you out. Like you can't get clean of that trauma without some personal counseling, some godly counseling. I think an organization like yours puts the icing on the cake. If you're in counseling, and if you can find a good organization like yours to drop your kids in, I'm talking to everybody out there. This organization its home base is in Phoenix, Arizona. But I'm definitely going to put their contact information down in the comments below, because even if you just need to reach out and just get some guidance, or get a better understanding of those 3 pathways, I want you to reach out. This is very important. I know we're having a good time. We're laughing and talking because we're survivors of of such a horrific situation. But the thing is that you're listening to this. I'm gonna try to air it probably 3 or 4 times, because we have to be able to help each other to heal. God requires us to actually, as neighbors, to love one another, talk about what's going on, and to help each other heal. So, so now we just learned that the Doves Network is a healing agent for those that are in their teens and have been, dealing with some domestic violence. Okay, so now you said after we get that, and I do agree with you. So it's the men. Now I'm on the team with AJ. Okay, so Tiffany then took us. She done got them all prepped up and got them ready.
Go.
They all packaged it in. Me and AJ, we step in as men mentors and strategists around men. So just kind of break it down. Give us, what's your intake on, and then how do you help support the work that Doves Network has put in place?
For me, and in the men aspect, it's prevention, of course, is the goal. And so that's what we start from. And the thing is, it's mostly like that's the prevention is the goal, and that's the change that we want to see and that we inject inside the men. But the thing is with men, to make them change agents, it takes deprogramming. From that boys club mentality. Like if you really think about how we were raised compared to women, we are raised to be more compatible and buddy and more family with our male counterparts than we are women. So it's almost like we're made to be total opposites, and then we try to put them together. We don't understand, because in the boys club we shut down our emotions. We don't we don't use that. So when you get with someone who does use emotion, you don't really know how to deal with that. You know what I'm saying? So this is where a lot of the odds come in, and because we're not emotionally intelligent enough to deal with that particular aspect, the only real true emotion that men are allowed that's recognized and cheered upon is anger for some odd reason. I know we use it in sports and things like that, but almost every other emotion that we use on the feelings wheel can somehow be put into some category of you're weak. If you're too happy to the boys club, they're like, man, he always happy. Why he always, you know what I'm saying? It's something wrong with you because you're happy. Or if you're a dreamer or anything, it's almost like let's dumb that down and make you into a clone of what we consider to be the male, and which is most likely the dominant male. It's 3 different types of male that I like to kind of explain, and I learned this from a mentor back in the day, but I've added one because it's the rough and tumble male. And that's the one that's mostly celebrated, the rough and tumble male, the one who plays sports and all of that. But there's also the creative male. He's not like that particular person, but he's still valid. You know what I'm saying? These are the thinkers of the world. But because they're not in the gym working out and things like that. And then you have people like myself, which is like the hybrid. of a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I can kind of disguise mine, because if you come in and you're creative and you're not like outwardly physical, our boys club, we kind of just stuff you away, you know. And so the intervention piece of that is to step in, knowing this from my own experience and my own perspective of being a male, is to reprogram, to show them a different framework. Because if this is normal, we've experienced a whole lot of trauma inside our boys club, just to become something that I'm not, because you want me to be that physical male. You want me to be sexual. What if I don't want to be? But again, if I come in and I'm telling them I'm not with a whole lot of girls, then I'm a punk.
Right.
And you see what I'm saying? If I just tell them I just want one girl, I want to be in love and have a family. Oh, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You head peck, your nose all open. You see what I'm saying? And we can be, the children can be cruel to each other. Youth can be cruel to a point where you just say, hey, you know what? I know that I know who I am at this point as far as relationships go and how I handle things. Yeah. But because I'm always ridiculed, I'm going to take that and stuff it in my back pocket, or most of us just throw it away.
Yep.
To become this thing so I don't get ridiculed. So the intervention part is coming in and kind of slicing through that and showing them something else, being that salt, being that light, to say, hey, there is a different way to think, in the way that we've been thinking and the stuff we've handed down generationally as it pertains to how we see ourselves and how we see women, even how we see our children, is not correct. And then the empowerment aspect comes in to give them the tools to be able to, first of all, we have to recognize that, and then give them the tools to be able to sit down. A lot of us, because we are men and we have the capability to have children with women, we feel like because I had a baby, I'm a good father.
Yeah.
Just because you can procreate doesn't make you a good father. No. It just makes you a father. We don't want to sit down as husbands just because we're married. We expect certain things to happen as married men, and that doesn't make us good husbands. You see what I'm saying? So you have to sit down and you have to actually have a conversation with your wife to say, hey, how do I need to show up for you? And let her tell you. You can't have a preconceived notion, because most of us think, hey, because I got a job and I'm bringing money in the house, that's good enough. No, we need you to show up in different areas, you know. And the same with our children. The same with our children. Sit your kids down and ask them, as a father, how should I show up for you? Because we may think we're doing it all. I bought you the Jordans, did I? But I just wanted you to come to the game. That's the part. You see what I'm saying? And that meant more to me than the Jordans. But you excuse that away, and then you try to throw Jordans on top so I can forgive you. But this is all part of the programming. It's a lot more within it, but it's just that particular thing, breaking down the mindset, giving them tools to be able to see things from a different lens, and then being able to put that out into the world. Because like I said, the ultimate goal is the prevention aspect, to just eradicate any type of abusive behavior. So, you know, that's why we support counter abuse training.
Yeah. And I think that's something, even with that counter abuse training, I think that also is another awesome element to add. I've done trauma training for foster care. I think I told you guys that the last time we spoke, but going through those type of classes and training really opens your eyes up to what is actually really going on. So like you say, a lot of stuff you see on the surface and it's like, oh, everything is just brushed to the side. It's like, you know, be tougher. You know, it's for men, I think well, and this is the thing, and this is how I kind of look at it. Because I remember having that conversation with my son, and it was like, it's not that men can't cry. It's just that from the position that you sit in, when you're in leadership and you have this authority and you have people following you and people looking up to you and people needing you, that there's still a level of strength that you have to show up with. And that just takes me back to like King David, you know, when they got overtaken and then they basically lost everything. And then David was just kind of, the guys are crying, David is crying. They're all in their feelings, woe is us. And I like that God actually looked down like, hey, not me encourage you, right? Not you're a man. You have to be able to do both. You have to be sad about the situation that went left and people came and overtaken you. But at the same
Right.
time, as a man, you also now have to dry those tears and you have to get tough, right? So you have to be able to wear that coat. Yeah, that's a reversible coat. And you have to be able to put that thing on. You got to know what side you have to put that on every single time when you're moving as a man. It's very tricky. It's not an easy task. I say the toughest thing in the world to be is a man. They label it as a woman, but a woman is a helpmate. She has someone to lean on, right? It physically in the natural, she has someone to actually lean on 24/7. Whether she's married to a man or have a male as a best friend or a father, she always or a group of girlfriends, right? So women always have. Men don't really have that. Our leaning is if you don't have Christ in your life, it's very shallow. But if you have Christ in your life, then most men have a vertical relationship with Christ. So we're always dumping stuff on Christ to get ourselves right. And like as I said about that training, that trauma training from a natural standpoint will help you see better that there are definitely some problems that men have. Toxic masculinity, they label it that, but that is how we build men. Men are to be tough. Men are to be strong. But the difference is that, and I heard a pastor talk about this, Philip Michaels or Michael Phillips. I don't know if you guys,
Michael Phillips,
Michael
Dr.
Phillips.
Anita's husband.
Yeah. And he talked about this and he was like, it's that discipleship gap in the middle that's missing, is that you're not sitting down and we're not having that discussion about it, which kind of goes to the trauma training. It's like, that's a discussion. That's what changes the game, is that, oh, okay, so I can be strong. Yeah. And I can cry. Oh, but this is how this looks. If I'm going to cry, what am I crying for? And even if I do cry, do I kick back into my strength? And so you get a chance to sit down with those men and be able to allow them to be adaptable to those situations. So, and that's just my piece. When I've heard you guys talk about it before, and to hear it again, that's just always been my takeaway for men, is that helping men understand that you can adapt. Don't let people just slap toxic on anything, right? Because you can say a woman is toxic, and it's not really true. Women are emotionally built
Most
from
of the things
God.
we don't understand, we call toxic.
Yes, and that's what it is that you just label that masculinity as toxic, and that very masculinity is in the Bible everywhere.
The thing that
go ahead.
I was about to say, the thing that like you were saying with David and crying and then having to go ahead and just, kind of put that situation behind him emotionally, is something that, like you said, is in Dr. I don't know his last name, Dr. Nita's husband, how you were saying that middle piece, and in the, next level male, like that program, it addresses that. It's an emotional intelligence. You see what I'm saying? Because we don't spend enough time with our emotions. We don't really know it, and we're either don't show them at all, or we're totally on the deep end. So for David to cry and then say, all right, now I got to go handle my business, that's emotional regulation. That's saying, okay, I know, and if I decide that I want to be sad again when I get home, I will, but right now I can't let this emotion control me. It's the emotion is just an indicator that something needs to be done or something just happened. And
that's the best way to put it.
The middle piece is about how you address it.
Yep. And that's what we have to, and I think that we have to spend a lot more time with our young guys, because they're emotional wreck, because most of them are in that trauma situation and they're being raised by women, and women are emotional. It's not a downplay. It's not a, oh my God, women are, no, listen, if the woman didn't have those emotions, you as a man would not have any way to balance out a family. You have to have that, or else you would just be, you will become toxic, because there won't be anything to balance you. When you don't have that softness of a woman to balance you out, hey babe, your tone was a little rough. I mean, I hear you. Yes, they do need to change, but that tone was like, it was kind of isolating, right? You need to maybe go sit down and talk with the kids just to make sure they understand. Once again, that goes back to the middle piece, that discipleship, that's sitting down, talking through. And like I said, having my son and he's 20 now, and our relationship, it almost made me cry when I think about it, because it's like, you can build a solid relationship with your son. Your son doesn't have to get in his teen years and want to fight you and cuss you out and buck up against the system. But it is the middle piece. It's the discipleship. It's the sitting down at restaurants. It's the hanging out, talking through life. And so I bring that up because I love what Doves do. I've read your material on your website and everything, and I think that you guys are just doing a great job. I don't even know if I know how many people are even in that space where they're challenging that trauma situation with the teens. Like I said, I'm in it, but I'm dealing with I'm dealing with the older males, and I think that maybe I need to.
Yeah, and I would say too, kind of just to add on that a little bit, not to deviate too far, but that's granted that you have a soft mother, because your bully can start even with your parents. And there are some women that talk and won't allow their boys, young men, to have those emotions. Like they're automatically, you are deemed head of house at 9 or 10, right? And so lot of even there's another side of like even adult men. That's why we do say you have to go back. Like even when you're in a car accident, right? You're in a car accident, you get hit. There has to be an assessment done even before they tell you what next steps are, right? But in that trauma we're hit with, did we do the assessment? So unfortunately, we do got to go back, look at what was birthed, to uproot, to plant the new. And even for those adult men, women, we do have to be those soft places for them to land. A lot of men, like you said, it's hard being a man. I definitely agree with that. I see that, because women, the femininity aspect is not always there. Sometimes there is a hardness there, but again, if that hardness is there, I'm guessing there's some trauma that developed that spirit, because the men have to also feel like they're safe. So it's not even just for teens. Men got to feel safe too, to let those walls down, to say like, hey, I'm not feeling like this, or hey, I feel like this. Or if you just keep demanding performance, when can he ever process those emotions? Same thing for the teens that get thrown into, performance. When do I get to feel and just be? And as a culture, we have to do better of, you're not a means to an end. You are a human being. So you have to be, and in being, your emotions and how you feel and your reactions to why you feel is a thing.
Yeah. Listen, if I break into one more
go ahead.
Conversation, topic, elaboration, we're gonna be on here for 3 hours. Listen, I enjoyed talking with you guys. This is what we do. We're gonna cut it here, because I think that there's still more conversations to have around this. I know we've already had an episode kind of introducing what Dove Network is all about. This is more about, what you guys actually do. What's the roots? What's the nuts and bolts about what the network does, Dove Network does. And so I think maybe try to get back on again so that we can dial into the trauma training portion. What does that look like? How can people get involved with that? I think some mothers, some fathers who have been dealing with that. My wife sent me an article today for me to look at. A young boy at Michigan State, a football player,
taking care of his siblings. His mom passed away from cancer.
His mom passed away from cancer, and then so now he's thrust into a world that he was just a kid playing football, having a good time, and now you are a guardian, a leader, a provider. You're a soft space. So now the code that I just talked about that you have to be able to go back and forth with. He never even got a chance to learn how to put that code on to be soft when he has to be hard. He's a football player. He's going to be tough. That's his world. His world is rough and tough. How do we reach out to this young man to get him to Doves, right? He needs some training. He needs to go somewhere. I don't know how we get in contact with that. I told my wife, my organization deals with single fathers. We got to figure a way how to help him. And it's not just him, it's others out there, but this is something that just hit. This is in our backyard. It's like, I want to figure out like, how do we get in contact with him? And not just throwing money and all of that stuff, but actually some actual training on understanding that, hey, being a parent, dude, and getting thrown into something that you just was at the university, stand on campus, and now you got to change your whole life. That trauma in itself is a whirlwind because his life was mapped out to go somewhere. And now you gotta, how do you put it on halt? How do you keep going?
It's compounded trauma. It's compounded trauma at that, because he also is grieving his mom.
And this is the thing.
And the part
we got to cut. This is it.
Okay. He's like, wait, we got to cut. You're right.
But it's the compound. But the thing is this: 9 times out of 10, he won't even really get to grieve that.
Right.
Now, and this goes right to what Tiffany talked about at the beginning of the show. It's all that stuff that's pressed down, compounded, and just built upon, and he's gonna have to carry that for the next couple of years until he get his siblings somewhere in life, right? My thing is that
unless the right resources come now and plant them seeds and get them those tools. I'm a lot more optimistic in the now than if we were talking about this 20 years ago.
Yeah,
because of the resources that's available. So it's definitely like, all right, how we get to him.
How do we get it? Yeah. So the thing is that this, and this is what I'm doing. Everybody who's watching this, who will see this, okay. If you know a way that we can get in contact with them, please put a comment in there. The Dove Network, they won't have any problems with assisting with any type of, situations that need to be taken care of from understanding the trauma and how to deal with it. And then we'll try to figure out some other type of organizations. And if you know any other persons, young teens who are going through all kind of situations that I would DM me or email me so that we can get the proper help going. We have organizations that are put in place. They're working tirelessly to assist with our children out here, to get them into a safe place in their minds and well-being. And so let's not just sit on these people. Let's help them build that network that they are looking for. So listen, thank you, Tiffany and AJ. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you for having us again.
I'll definitely reach out. I know you guys are super busy out there. And so I'll shoot out some more dates and hopefully we can get in another chat here in October.
Let's do it.
All right, man. And like I said, thank you guys for coming on. And I've enjoyed myself.
Enjoy ourselves as well. Always.
All right. You guys have a blessed day.
Have a good one.
You as well.
All right. Till next time.